Up the microphones. Hello, and welcome to Geek Out number 24. We've got Peter as myself, Carl as Carl, and Ba as Ba. Um, Here at Geek on My Sleeve, we do spoiler-free book reviews, summary recaps, and what you're here for today, Geek Out live in-depth discussions over the books. Today we will be doing The Assassin's Blade. It is a prequel of The Throne of Glass. It involves 5 novellas, or short stories. And then we're also covering the first book, Throne of Glass, first book of the series in its name. They are both done by Sarah J. Maas. Welcome, welcome, welcome. There's a couple. I was gonna say a couple of my favorites are the Frieza. This isn't even my final form. Not hearing audio from Ba or Carl. Thank you for the heads up. I will click buttons. Oh, okay. I can click other buttons. You see, I was trying to get it set up for when I do my recordings that it separates the audio tracks, but I had disconnected that track. If we could get a word from either of you, see if it's working out now.
Testing, testing. How about meow?
So I've got my
Hello.
bar moving. Wait for the delay from everything. The hope is that I could just swap
Oh,
it. I know there's a couple things for the OBS that
yay!
it will not come through.
Looks like we're
Oh, okay.
good to go
I was
now.
refreshing my page.
Awesome.
So yeah,
Awesome, awesome.
there's a couple good memes
So,
about the whole current stuff. Favorite one is this isn't even my final form. We've got Frieza. And then I guess a
yes,
personal one is, trapped in a lit RPG or trapped in a different realm where we can't leave our house. But for me, that no longer applies because
yes,
I am back working, which is unique, to say the least.
yes. The
Yeah.
world is opening back up. The one that I really enjoyed is, this is the tutorial
Oh,
mode
yeah, the
and
rich
like the
list.
real, yeah, rich list reference. Now the campaign truly begins. Um, but yeah, the Assassin's Blade and Throne of Glass. It is going to be an interesting discussion because I think all three of us kind of fall in different places on the spectrum about how much we enjoy this book. Um, Very popular series. Mentioned it before on the channel. Like, you cannot go to a bookstore without seeing this series. It is just so popular, so well received, yet um, from everything I've seen online, you either love it or you hate it. As always, would love the audience to join in on the discussion. But yeah, Pete, where'd you fall on the spectrum as far as love it, hate it for for the
So
series?
I guess first step is spoiler warning. I forgot to mention it. In-depth discussion stuff. Spoiler warning. For me, it was difficult to get into this book. First off, I'm not a huge fan of the assassin trope, and and
We
last
talked about
week
that last
was my
week.
first real
Yeah.
assassin trope book. And then this week for the assassin, so I'm not a huge fan of that. And also, it seems like it did a lot of things well, but it wasn't as relatable to me. So I had a hard time getting engrossed in the book, but it does have a
Yeah.
very strong female lead role or female main character, and it's, I guess, kind of insightful for the different, walks of life or elements that she goes through, and how even when life's not going her way, she, you know, sees it, reacts to it, turns it around, and is stronger because of it, or just, keeps her chin up and keeps on moving. So it's got a lot of strong elements to it. It just wasn't my favorite. Yeah.
How about you, Ba? Love it, hate it? Where'd you fall on the spectrum?
So I love it. It's for me it's an amazing book. I like I said already, I'm a big fan of Sarah's writing and Sarah's creation of worlds and everything. Um, I like a lot, but I still have some points that I don't quite buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we don't have it up yet, but I think we talked a little bit about it when we did the spoiler-free review,
Yes.
and I'm really looking forward to getting into the more details about that in the live stream here because I had some similar issues with the book. Um, I fall somewhere in the middle. I'm glad I read it. I didn't struggle as much to get into it as Peter did. I really think between the two, I enjoyed the Assassin's Blade more than I did the first one. And I wonder if maybe that's a little bit because I have to double check in the publication order. But I think the first book came out and then she did the novellas later and put it
Yeah.
together in a book. Bob may know. Does that sound right?
Yeah. As far as I know, she wrote like the first two or three books, and then she published the novellas.
Okay. Okay. So maybe it's just more the fact that with the Assassin's Blade, she kind of had her writing style more refined. Um, but I'm glad I read it because I understand the hype and I see it and I enjoyed the book, yet kind of the same tone as Pete. It's not necessarily my cup of tea. Um, Now, yeah, just for a bit of fun, romance subplot. Who are you guys rooting for? The prince or the captain of the guard?
So that's where really I enjoyed the prequel because it very much
Uh-huh.
set the tone for, there's no magic in the world and everything else that's going on. And after, like, I was impressed that they did end up killing off her first romance. And it was I felt like they were good for each other. They balanced each other out. She was the loose cannon at times, and he was the rock, or he had the solid foundation. I was a little sad that died off, but it fits with the occupational hazards. I think the guard is a little bit too shy and reserved for her, but I feel like with the prince, it's very complicated. I would be rooting for the guard, but I don't know, the prince, and with her being fearful of the king, it's kind of that, what a twist if it ends up going that way, because anything can happen. She's already killed off a character. Granted, they were a side character, but already killed one off. So if she does get invested or involved with the prince, and then she becomes, not just the king's blade or whatever, or king's, I forget the verbiage. Um, yeah,
Champion, I believe, is the way
champion
they worded it.
into the
Yeah,
queen. That wow, that would be quite a leap.
that it would be, and we're trying to keep our
Oh
spoilers
yeah, but
between
I
these two
haven't read
books.
them. Yeah.
Pete and I have only gotten through the first quote 2 books. I think Ba is a book or two further. Quick shout out to Pygmy Puff Reads. She has an awesome channel. Go check her out. Not now, after the stream, but yeah, good to see you. Uh, how about you, Ba? Who were you rooting for in the first book?
So in the first book, I I don't quite like the prince. I think
Yeah,
he is too snobby, too shallow. Uh, I like the guard, and but my heart is still with Sam. I'm still struggling to deal with what happened in the novellas, so
yeah.
I still don't quite believe in either of them.
Okay.
Mm, maybe there'll be more love interest later on in the series. I'm
That's
with.
common with Sarah's books.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm with you. I felt like Sam and Sardathian were a really um, kind of a good fit, and it was tragic to see what happened in the prequel. The prince is very much a playboy, right? And yeah, so I was rooting for the captain. Um, and there towards the end, he was really there for her in that final duel with Cain, right? Where the prince is just kind of sitting on his hand there.
Well, that's
Um,
just political complications, and that's why I don't think the prince would work. It'd be a pretty cool, started from the bottom, now I'm here,
yeah.
family got murked by these, become an orphan, become an assassin. Oh, just kidding, now I'm the queen, and now I'm ruling all of you.
Uh,
That could be quite a twist. But
Pygmy Puff says the romance does get better, kind of. Um, but yeah, that certainly seems to be a theme in this series. So there were a lot of things I really liked about this. We kind of got more of the world building. There was a lot in the prequel that I really enjoyed because we got to see different places around the world as she went to like the sand or the desert, the different towns. And we got more of the questions answered about magic in the first book, right?
yeah, that was a good foundation. Or
Yeah.
prequel.
The prequel, yeah, we got a lot of it, and then I felt like we got more of those questions answered in the first book. Um,
Yeah, I feel that the novellas they were a lot to introduce us to the world and to
mhm,
see the different towns and scenarios that we could potentially see furthermore in the book,
right.
further in the book. But I feel that the first one we didn't see a lot of the world building because she was confined in the castle all the time.
Yeah.
But I think the first book was like, okay, so here's the magic, the beginning of the magical part of the books, the series.
Mm,
While the prequel was like, so this is the world, we can see this stuff happening, and this is her, who she is before she became that person in the first book.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
The
Yeah. Not. Oh, go ahead, Pete.
the prequel, I'd agree, was very much like physical world building and really set down a lot of foundation that came, that was not very explained in the actual book. We got insight as to the king banishing or, saying there can't be any magic. We got to see how it influenced a lot of the areas, such as what is it, the assassin and the healer, and that whole scene
Mm.
there, and the hope, it still gives us hope that there is magic in the world. And then for the first book, we get to see, words escape me. I'm just gonna call them runes. I know they're not runes, but
It's like weird marks,
or
Word mark
word
maybe?
word
marks.
marks,
That
Yeah,
sounds
marks.
right.
yes.
So the word marks and just all the political maneuvering, because there's a lot of subtle things that happen that doesn't come together until the final fight, because we've got this the woman who ends up, I think it's smoking or whatnot and doing other things to help her with her headaches. um
Cal
Mm,
Caltain.
yeah, that sounds right. She does the opioids or
yeah,
whatnot.
Mhm.
so she does that,
Um, mhm.
and at first I just thought because she's a noble, she has the ability to do this, and it's, different times and different world, whatever, whatever. But then at the end of the fight, when she's like, I thought you said this would work, and she's talking to, the king's
So like the
advisor,
Duke, that sponsor. Yeah,
and it all
yeah.
kind of comes out of the woodwork that she was just a puppet, and she was also being
Mhm.
manipulated by the word marks to kind of give her those headaches and to make her less observant and less functionable in other means. And so that was kind of interesting that we got to, the guy who banished them or was saying, hey, you can't use them, is then also utilizing them for manipulation. And then just the whole main guy, or not main guy, the front runner throughout all the competitions, Kane.
Kane, the guy that
Yeah,
keeps getting
yeah, and
bigger and bigger
it's
each
done
time
pretty
somebody
well where it's
disappears.
fairly
Yeah.
subtle, and it's just kind of like a feeling that you get throughout it. Yeah, so
Hmm.
it was I don't know, good insight to the magic.
Yeah, we kind of got a bit of that teased, enough to make me curious about it moving forward. Um, there's also, for me, a lot more questions about the
Yeah.
king, right? Somewhere in the first book, he has a whole like group accompanying him, and then he shows up without them, right?
Yes.
And I'm not sure what your guys' thoughts on it in the first book, but there was some subtle foreshadowing that kind of made me wonder how much involvement and how much he knew about Cain and his magic, right? And what all he might be
Or I
involved
thought
in.
he what I thought he
Um,
set it all up. I thought he had his oh I'm so sorry, I'm butchering all the names. Names don't work for me. The king had his advisor, of which was word marking the other high noble lady, and the king, I'm pretty sure I thought he was the sponsor, or he had another proxy acting as a sponsor for Kane, and felt I don't know, maybe I misread it, but I thought he was leading the whole thing. Like he was the one influencing the other high noble to influence the lady with the word marks so that she was doing the opioids or opiums. Yeah, I felt like it was all connected, and yeah, and I just see him kind of as like a
well,
Genghis Khan, so to speak. Like he's just out to slaughter and conquer. So he manipulates and takes away, and he has all the underhanded things that he does.
Yeah,
What was your take on that, Paul?
I have a feeling that he's messing up with some magic. That he went to do something with magic that went very wrong and killed all his army, or maybe that he actually killed all of them just to hide, just to not have any witnesses of what he was doing. I don't know quite well.
Yeah, that was kind of the vibe I picked up on a little bit, and magic is eliminated and banned in the land, yet there's so much kind of hinting that the king is still very much involved with magic and aware of magic. And there's some moments there where it's obvious that he's not just this old, frail man. He moves and, you know, is quick and et cetera, et cetera. Um, so, yeah, interesting to see what goes on there. And then the prince just kind of seems disconnected from the kingdom. Doesn't really know too much about what his father is doing and scheming.
I think
Um,
a lot of that plays into the
but
kind of the
yeah,
age role, and that was another reason I had kind of a disconnect or hard time getting into this book, because the female main character is on the younger side, and yeah, so the prince at the same time, like the whole reason he picks up Sardathian or however you say her name was kind of to that's not the right word, to irk off his, to go against, there we go, that works, to go against the king, his
yeah,
father. Yeah.
to rebel. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. Out of the first, the prequel, The Assassin's Blade, did you guys really have a favorite story out of those novellas that really you enjoyed more than others?
I like the first one a lot with the Pirate Lord,
Yeah.
because I had read I read this first book and the second before I read the novellas. So I already knew about Sam,
Mm,
and that was the first time that I read about him, not
hmm.
in action. And but not just that, I got to see how the two of them connected, but also the good side of them, because before we see that Selena is a good person, she tries not to be just an assassin, but without that part, she's just an assassin. But with that novella, we get to see her freeing all of those slaves
Hmm.
and putting herself and Sam into danger just to save them. And I think that was a good story, so we can see that she's fighting for the good stuff, the good side.
Yeah, it really was a good book to kind of set us up with her moral compass, right? I'm really glad I read the prequel before the first book, because like the first book referenced the prequel a lot, but um, the very first novella really sets up her character, as well as Sam, allowing us to, kind of go into the first book and really know kind of who she is, where she stands on everything. Um, Out of all the novellas, Pete, which one was
Okay,
your
so
favorite?
names yet again escape me, but the Silent Monk arc novella,
The
The
Assassin and the
Assassin and
Desert.
the Desert. And I don't know if you figured this
Yes.
out, but I love those insightful, uh, I guess, reflection moments. And towards the end of it, when this person who doesn't seem to really fit in the theme of the monks, you know, snaps or finally gets her revenge or whatever, whatever. And you get to see, all the range of emotions between she did connect with Sardathian, and she did kind of have this whole plan and playing both sides. But when we're at the final fight for in between them, and tables get turned, and you see the remorse, and you see the the main silent monk's view on everything, and he's like, I knew, but I wanted to see what she would do with it. You can take, and that's where like the best thing this book did for me was it's very reflective. It takes a bad situation and it makes you see it and utilize it and harness it in many different ways. So she had that hatred, and you're the only one who can decide how you react. That individual took it to the extreme and turned it into rage and anger, and was trying to hurt others because they were hurt themselves. And of course, it didn't work out, but it's all about how you channel it. So I enjoyed it just for kind of the overarching philosophy and yeah, what you do. It's not about what happens, it's about what you do about it.
Yeah. There are a lot of good little lessons like that in both books, which is one of the many reasons why I enjoy reading. You get to kind of walk a mile in their shoes, or I think that one was that they do like 3 miles every
Yeah.
morning, run in the desert. So you get to run 3 miles in her shoes every day and kind of experience that. The Assassin in the Desert was probably my favorite of the novellas as well. And part of that is also just the setting out in the desert, getting to see another Assassin's Guild, and just a kind of a bit more of exposure just to the larger world and seeing the impact of this warring nation and how it's impacted so many different characters, um, and how life is for them afterwards. um, but yeah, would love to know what others feel their favorite novella was. Feel free to toss it in the comments or in the chat for those joining us live. Um, yeah, yeah. The prequel was very much an assassin book, and we follow the main character of an assassin. Yet the first book, it really wasn't assassin-y. Um, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
So, oh, or go
Yeah,
ahead,
so
Bob.
oh sorry. No, I was just gonna say that the prequel we see her as an assassin. Like
Hmm.
we get to see what she does for a living and why she does that and how she does that. I think it was very very interesting. But at the end, she's enslaved.
Hmm.
So the in the first book she's released, but she's not really released. She's kind of in another prison, but a fancier one. You know.
Hmm.
So now we don't see the assassin sides anymore. We don't
Hmm.
see her as we now see her as a girl, but a girl that with very skills, very defined skills, and now she's the champion. She's she's fighting and other people to become a champion. So we stop seeing the assassin side, but we now see the fighter side, I think.
Yeah, yeah. The prequel, we really get to see her at the top of her game, right? Making the name for herself, and then the first book, it was like a year, 13 months, I think, working the mines, and kind of get to watch her come back a bit. And uh, yeah, there's just so much I want to get into about the first book. There's a lot I really enjoyed, but there were some moments where I had some disconnect because she was pretty much more or less tortured for 13 months, right? In between the prequel and the first book. And we really get to see what a strong character she is in the first book. And I acknowledge that. Um, but there were a couple moments like at the very early on in the first book, and I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this as well, where you could see some of the wear and tear from her time there, but I felt like she really bounced back pretty quick to um, being that young girl in the nice clothing and so on and so
Uh,
forth.
Yeah,
I
that is.
okay.
Oh,
I
sorry.
felt like that part it did well for me because we got to see in the
Okay.
prequel we got to see her at her top of her game, and then she's in the whatever camp as a slave, and then I felt like it was pretty raw. Like, yeah, she was pushing herself training in the first book, and she was throwing up, and even within the first trial, where they've got to run so far, like she makes it, and she has the excuse like, oh, I forgot my ring, or I dropped my ring or something, goes back and is puking her guts up. Like, she's not taking it lightly. She's not in her prime or in her top physical condition due to whatever they're feeding her, and the body having to dedicate resources to all the poor treatment and the whipping or whatever that happened there. But I felt like, yeah, she bounced back fairly quick. But it's kind of like riding a bike, it's all muscle memory, but she did go through some pretty rigorous, in-depth physical training because she had like a whole week leading up into the first event, and then like she still wasn't 100%. So because she was throwing up.
So I agree with you, but I agree with Carl too, because I feel that physically we saw her struggles and her getting better. Because yes, she just spent 13 months enslaved and she wasn't doing any exercise, she wasn't being fed or anything. So it took her a while. She threw up a lot. So physically, I think that we saw this side of her getting better again, but I missed a lot of the mental process because she just spent 13 months enslaved. She also just lost her boyfriend. He was killed for her because of her, and she had to see his body there. And uh, she was very the she was very focused on the on getting better and training and everything. But besides that, she was worried about dresses, parties, boys. But where is the mental struggle? I miss that because a person that just lost someone that important and also spent 13 months enslaved, being whipped, being not fed. I don't think her main worries would be boys and dresses and makeup and those things.
That's where I was with the first book. We did see um, the physical aspects of it, and Sarah J. Maas did a good job articulating that through her writing. But yeah, the mental challenges there, like Ba just pointed out, pretty much having her whole world come crashing down, the betrayal by her adopted father and family, and her boyfriend who she was planning to run away with and start a new life with, um, getting killed. And we got to see some of the trauma that she went through in those mines over the 13 months. And in a lot of ways, and it's also a young adult book, so perhaps I need to readjust and look through that filter as well. That it's probably not going to be as harsh as maybe a more mature dark fantasy book. Um, but you would expect anybody to have some more challenges. And within a couple of chapters, like you said, she's obsessing over her dresses and stuff like that.
I,
Um,
I don't know. For
but yeah.
And I get that it is a young adult fantasy book, and she's a very strong character.
Hmm.
So not just physically, she's a very strong character mentally.
Hmm.
But I miss a lot of that because she mentions a lot of times that she's keeping a lot of things away even from her because she doesn't want to think about those things like her parents. Sam is probably in that box that she created to not think about those things. But I, for me, it made me hard to believe that she would be just worried about those things. Where are the struggles, mental struggles?
Hmm.
yeah, and then for me, like I felt they it was more in the prequel where they emphasized it. Like she was pretty distraught over Sam's mangled body, and there was a complete disconnect of just going through the motions while she was being sentenced. And then I just kind of took it as like due to her training and the difference between her guild and how harsh it was versus I guess the desert guild, the silent monks for example. And then yeah, she was still going through a lot of turmoil with being, you know, enslaved for 13 months, but I felt, there was no one else there. Like, she very much just kind of, like Ba was saying, just shuts it all in a vault, you know? She just doesn't even think about it. And we get to see part of her reaction in the final fight there with Kane and how he knows stuff about her
Hmm.
family and she just like can't even deal with it. So it's both sides. She's a very strong character. She's very headstrong, very in your face, but at the same time, you get to see glimpses of her walls come down. And in my humble personal opinion, that's not healthy. Now, granted, I haven't been in anything relatable situational, but if you bury it deep, it just burns a hole. So
Yeah. You bring up a good point that I should have factored in maybe a little bit more, but she did go through a lot of really traumatic moments throughout her
or
training,
well, yeah,
right? She shared some
she got to see
stories.
her
Oh,
parents
go ahead.
killed, she ran away, like her whole origin story, and then as soon as that, like her whole assassin upbringing was pretty much like, hey, I'm
Hmm.
gonna pamper you with nice things, nice dresses, but that's so you can get insight and go kill these nobles. Like, I
Right.
felt it was just to the character.
And there were elements of her training too, where like I think the story was in there about how um her adopted father wanted her to get better with like sword fighting with her left
Yeah.
hand, so he like broke her right hand, sort of a deal. So she's a resilient character. Um,
And not just that, but there are also like 6 or 7 more books. So
mm,
I'm pretty sure that we're going to see her struggling with all of that and getting past or dealing with all of that soon later in the story.
right. When she has a
But
little more breathing room, maybe, because the first book, she's very much in life or death situation, right?
yeah, she's focusing on if I don't win this, I'm going back to being a slave. So I'm gonna focus on this. My
Yeah, good
problems
point.
were when she wasn't focusing on the the tests on training
Yeah.
was like, because it made me feel that she is a very shallow person too.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, One of the other things that I finally got the answer to in the first book is who is on the cover. Because I got really confused there when they describe her as this fair skinned blonde. And then I look at the cover, which we have in the fourth corner here, and we have that character there. Correct me if I'm wrong, but on the cover, that's the first queen, right? The one that she sees when she goes down
Oh, the
to
crypt who gives her the
oh
amulet.
yeah, yeah,
Elena
yeah. Is that um your takeaway on that as well, or is the
on this
cover art?
cover,
Yeah, is that the queen? That's not
I don't think
Sardathian, is
so.
it?
I always took them as Selena.
Yeah, that was my first impression too, but there's a different cover art where she's blonde and fair skin, and they describe it in the book as her being blonde and fair skin. But when I picked up the book, I assumed that the kind of dark elf looking girl was Selena. Maybe I could be off. If anybody knows, please feel free to chime in. But I like that cover art um, with the drow looking um, elfin figure, but that's not the way they describe her in the book. The way they describe her in the book is a fair skinned blonde.
Uh,
Um,
well,
but I could be completely
maybe
off
that's
base.
after she goes through all this turmoil and she has so much stress in her life, it just all goes gray.
Yeah, she's gray at 18, 19 years old. It happens. It happens. Um, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Um, yeah, yeah. Um,
So one thing that I
trying
didn't
to think.
really understand or didn't get answered. So we've got the glass structures or whatnot, and our main character,
Mhm.
Sardathian, has a kind of gut reaction of like, I don't want to be here. And at first, it seems like I, it kind of tries to play it off as afraid of heights, but then she's like, oh no, I'm not afraid of heights. That's not it. And it doesn't really get answered, but there are those word marks all over the place, and we get to see Kane messing with them, and we get insight from the other princess about,
Mhm.
oh, those are word marks, don't mess with them. But
Mhm.
apparently, our main character would have had magic if magic was still here. So, in my mind, it's kind of a reaction to the word marks and kind of how she ends up having one on her forehead after the fact. But that is just
Okay.
another one of those like, what did the king do and what is really going on here kind of moments. And kind of same thing with Kane. Like, there's this whole underground system of which he's able to, do his word mark jazz and summon these extra planar whatchamawiggers to suck the life and power out of everyone. Yeah.
You're so good with names.
Yeah, that's what I know. What Piggy Me Buffy just said.
Yeah. Let's see. Pygmy Puff says she thinks it's Sardathian, um, but it might have something to do with the second book, and it makes sense when she changes, quote unquote. So we might get that answered later on. Interesting to see. Um, yeah. We get some foreshadowing in this book, which is good. It's the first book. Hopefully, some more of that gets answered. Um, One of the things that I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts on as well. We didn't get a whole lot of answers like we get to see some of the magic in that final duel, right? And there's a lot that goes on there, between, her not getting much of respite and then getting drugged with the wine. But when she gets drugged, she kind of sees into the other planes, and Kane kind of looks more like this demon. Um, but the princess from another land who she kind of befriends, and does the tutoring with, kind of gives us some insight into the lore there. But a couple chapters before that, we got to see Kane come running through the hallways, right? And unable to speak, like something was chasing him.
Uh,
Um, do you guys think that was actually Kane, or was he possessed?
or so I thought it wasn't so much that like I knew he couldn't speak, but Kane was absorbing the powers of the others. So I thought it was more uh melding magics kind of deal where his body wasn't quite able to hold in all the power, so to speak.
I took it is in another way. I thought that scene was him like him the 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 Kane character conscious again, like because for me, since he started all of this, it was kind of like what happened to the other noble lady. Like she wasn't herself anymore, so I don't think he was himself anymore. And since he was the one doing all of those things with the demons, he
Hmm.
was kind of possessed with everything that he was messing with. And I think that moment was him like getting conscious about everything that was happening, and he was like asking help, but he couldn't
Mm,
speak anything because he was being controlled. I
yeah,
don't know, but that's how I took it.
yeah,
I could see that.
yeah,
Or not just asking for help, but also like trying to warn her about something.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of questions with the magic system. We kind of get a little bit of it teased, um, but still don't truly understand how it all works there. Um, what were some other big moments that you guys enjoyed or want to visit from, book one or the prequel? So much happens in both of them.
So for book one, for me, you could see the struggle with the main character, Sardothian, trying to be humble and stay in the middle of the pact. And so even though she does stay in the middle of the pact, she kind of showboats a bit, you know. It's I it's complicated because I didn't so much care for her younger self and how she was a little too arrogant for me, and how she's like, I'm the
She's the
best. I know
best,
I'm the
though.
best. And that's fine and all, but you don't need to cram it down everybody's throat. And then to see her in the first book and her, you know, she's still in the mindset of I'm the best, and then she's like, "Oh, I can't tell everyone who I am. I can't be the best, but I'm still gonna act as if I'm." I don't know. It was there was a lot of contrast there that didn't. I don't know.
Sh she is the best, though, right? Like everybody knows her name. Um, I really enjoyed, seeing those tests, though. Um, the different duels, the poison, um, the obstacle courses and whatnot. It kept it fun instead of just all cooped up in that
Yeah.
castle.
I, I wanted to have seen a little bit more of the tests and how all those those 16 people were de- dealing with each other, how they were living together, how they were training together.
Hmm. I'm with you. We could have spent a lot more time with that. And for me personally, a little bit less on the romance side, but this is a fantasy romance. Um, but yeah, I'm with you. It would have been interesting to see more of those characters as well. I felt like we really just focused on a handful of, I think it was 24 originally, but they got whittled down pretty quick.
Mm, yeah.
Um, in kind of the process of elimination for becoming the champions.
Well,
Um, and then
yeah, so that's where I
go
would
ahead.
have loved to see more of like the actual events themselves, but I felt like that's what she
Hmm.
does. She does the misdirection bit where she's like, "Oh, we're here for this." Just kidding. People are dying left and right. Still haven't figured it out. Oh, more people died. We still haven't figured it out. And it's the whole lead up to the word marks at the tower and Kane actually harnessing the powers of other individuals and the second hand to the king influencing the other noble lady and using word marks, and then she's using opioids or whatever to kind of counteract it. But then in the big fight at the end with Sardothian, when she's influenced and with the wine, and now she's seeing through her third eye into the second dimension of the demons going on about that. And I do also a little nod to Sarah about her almost fourth wall breaking, where she just like keeps talking about books and how much the main character loves books, and how much the main character got books, and I it was insightful to see the main character attempting to do research and to better further herself and getting insight in the
Hmm.
world as these things go on. But for me, as much as I love combat, I was disappointed, but it was all directly insightful for the magic about to come that we don't really know jack about.
So one thing that I thought was funny, because I read this book before, but I think I read this book around like 2016 or something.
Okay.
And 2 years ago, I read a book that I also liked a lot, but I didn't notice this. But reading this one now, Throne of Glass again, I was like, the books are so similar. I'm a big fan of both of them, but a lot of items were similar. Like both books are about assassins. Both of the books are about uh, they on. So this is about a competition, but the other one is a school, but it's kind of a competition. They are like tr- they're competing against each other to see who is going to become an assassin and all. And there's a lot of the library scenes, the books and researching and the those things. I was like, they are so similar but yet so different. And it's a book that I want you to read one day. It's Nevernight. I thought they were
Okay.
very, very similar.
I've heard the title, and we're always looking for new book suggestions, though. I think Peter has sworn off Assassins for a
I
little bit.
need to find
Um,
I
I'm
need to
willing to give it
find
a
a
shot.
good assassin book because
I think you would like Nevernight. It's a different type of assassins. I may be wrong, but I
It
think
and
you would like it.
This wouldn't be the first book that was a clone of another book, but a lot of authors come out and say that it comes down to the execution, right? Because so many books are like Lord of the Rings clones, yet they have their own take and execution on it.
oh yeah, that's why
So,
we
yeah,
get into
sorry,
the
Pete,
whole
I cut you
like
off.
trope scene. It's like it's been done before, or for me, side note, back in the day when Avatar, the not the Airbender one, Avatar came out with the blue people and the avatars where you got in the pod and went and were a whole nother person out in space and on this whole nother world. The whole time I was watching it, I was like, this is freaking Pocahontas on steroids. Like other people from a different
Uh,
planet, other people from a different continent. come over and invade and say, "This is mine now." Come over, invade, and say, "This is mine now." Romance subplot, and trying to get the girl. Yeah, we try to get the girl. Like the movie was good for what it did. It was the first ever 3D IMAX epic. Like the visuals were great, but the story just I couldn't get behind any of it. Side note, um,
There was also a talking tree,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
In both of them.
I guess they didn't have a musical number that I remember. So we did miss our musical number, but I yeah. You're right. It's all about execution and yeah, the reason I need to find a good assassin book is because I know there's someone out there who does it good and I enjoy the obscurity. For example, my first rogue I ever rolled on WoW was like an orc or whatever, which is not what you roll as a rogue. So I yeah, making things
You like to do
work
things a little bit
differently.
different, Pete.
So yeah, I'll find one. I just it
Yeah,
give me a
yeah.
bit of a palate cleanser, and then I'll come back.
Well, we already have June scheduled, which we'll get into that a little bit later here. Um, what do you guys think about the ending of book one? Like she negotiated for a less of a sentence, right? Like the prince said, "Oh, serve us for 6 years." She came back, said, "Oh, make it 3 years." The prince said, "Okay, I'll ask daddy for 4." Um, where she's pretty much going to be the guy that sentenced her to slavery to work in these mines, right? She's got to be his blade, and yet she's not being his blade, right? She's pretty much helping these people um, go into hiding or whatnot.
Well, that's where I don't
What
know
were
how
you?
much of that is actually in it because I guess what you're talking about in the audiobook format, there is a snippet into book 2 that we get to see, and
Oh,
I
oops!
don't
Did I just
know
slip
how
up?
much of that is actually involved in the physical copy of it. Because for book 2, it or yeah, for book 1 at the end, it is a hey, if you enjoyed this, try more. I don't know if that's just an audiobook tactic or what. So,
Yeah, my copy. I don't think we have the
oh, okay.
sneaky peek.
Yeah, so
I must have. I
No.
just goofed.
Yeah. So for me, it ends when Cow, Cow, Ko, Ko asks her if she wants to know what her first task is going to be, and she's like, "Yeah, tell me tomorrow."
Oh,
That's
okay.
where we finish book one.
Okay. Scratch that.
I almost didn't
Rewind.
listen to that excerpt
Um,
because I was like, wait a minute. I yeah.
yeah, this is why I don't get ahead in the series and I have to stop trying to get more disciplined about that. Um, yeah. What else did you have for us, Pete, from
So
book one?
sidestep. Another reason I had hard time getting into it was a very first scene. We're picking up Sardathian out of the you know uh, slave center mining area, and we get the whole plot right up front. And then at the end, it's like, hey, come be my champion, come be the hand of the king, or whatever the verbiage is, and that's what happens. So I was kind of a little underwhelmed for the overarching, but at the same time, it was all a sleight of hand for me, which is very assassin esque, where even though our main focus was doing the battles and becoming the best and catching them all, not really, to get there, it was all a misdirection into oh, the king's really using this magic. He has other people who can utilize this magic, and we're getting to see like little insights into other elements. So I don't know.
Hmm.
It was uniquely done.
Yeah, yeah. All right, we kind of have a trend going. For the prequel, who would you guys consider to be the MVP?
Uh,
Most
Explain to me.
valuable,
Uh,
most valuable person, player.
yeah.
So,
I,
for me, it was definitely Sam. He wasn't in all the novellas, um, but he really helped out there a lot. Who you
I
got,
think
Pete?
uh,
Oh, sorry. Who you got, Ba?
for me it was Sam too, but it was because I'm still missing him, you
Mhm,
know. And I think that even when he wasn't there in the novella, he was still a big important person there. He was like very present, even though he wasn't there.
mhm,
But I also think that I cannot pronounce his name, Arabine, the father,
mhm.
he was very important too because he was like it was because of him that everything that
Oh
happened.
yeah, I
So
totally forgot about that scene until just now. Like when everything goes awry, Sam dies, Sardathian gets captured. I think they pretty much are about to counteract or whatever with the main assassin king, and then she's getting whisked away in the transport convoy thing, and there's a conversation. Sorry, follow me. Conversation with, I think it's the king and the main assassin, or the assassin king, and it's pretty much like, oh, so you're gonna go get her, convoy's nothing to you guys, you got her. And he's pretty much like, no, we're not going to go bail her out, you know, just remember who made you king. And I guess I might be misremembering it, but I wasn't sure if it was like in representation to who made you Assassin King, like the father figure guy, or if it was a Assassin King and King excerpt.
I remember it being between the quote unquote adopted father and the one that captured her.
Okay, so it was the
Um,
betrayal
yeah,
thing. Okay.
yeah. Is that how you remembered it, Ba?
yeah, because I think it was like they talking about how Arabine set Sam up. Like he told the guy where Sam would be, so they could kill him, and then how he he got Selena arrested, and then that he wasn't going to save her. That whenever she something happened to release her, she wouldn't know about everything that happened. That he was the one that betrayed them.
Mm,
I think it
Okay.
was something
Okay.
like that.
Anyway,
yeah. I was expecting the Assassin Guild to play a bigger role in book one. I know that we were focusing very much on like the palace and all those characters, but I was going into book one kind of expecting a little bit of that at least, just because her guild was such a big part of the prequel, even if it was just a separate
it
storyline.
was
But we
It
didn't
was
see
very
any of
subtle,
that.
and there were a couple things, like, I guess, kind of in the trials for, like, sniffing out the poisons and ranking them from deadliest to least poison or whatever, and then, scaling a wall,
Mm,
and, the Assassin's Creed leap across the gargoyles to save the guy, and yeah. Anyway, my
yeah.
MVP, yet again, would have been Sam. uh, Similar yet different reasons, mainly because in a relationship, I don't, or I didn't care for the romance subplot, but he was definitely the rock, the foundation for the relationship. Like she was the oh wild person, and he kept her grounded. And then he also chairs. Um, yeah, so he was just a strong, great foundation. And then also, whenever he wasn't in scene, like Bob was saying, he was still a strong influence for our main character. He was still, she would be about to do whatever, and she's out in the desert, and she's thinking about Sam, and she's wondering what he's up to, and kind of still, you know, helping her along her moral compass and figuring everything out. But if I had to pick a different main character to add variety, because why not make things difficult? I would have to say the silent monk for especially that arc, but just for the insight he brings and how he has developed an assassin's guild just because they're good at their job, but the camaraderie and how they're continue to train and develop and share knowledge and just being the opposite of what is expected. And then the insight with oh wolf sword lady armor chick. I'm sorry. Um, with how she had some turmoil and harnessed it the wrong way. It's simply the energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be transmitted or transferred. So she had a scenario that happened to her, and, the monk put it into perspective for Sardothian and kind of helped her grow and develop. And it, I'm a sucker for that. I enjoy the philosophizing of life. And yeah, so the silent monk and how he can say so much with saying so little. And yeah.
And not just that, but we also need to remember that it was because of him that Selena was able to pay her dad, her father, all that she owned him and get her freedom.
We saw what that freedom looked like by the end of the
Well,
prequel,
and
right?
then I guess that's
Yep.
another big part for
Yeah.
me in the end of one, where you were asking, how do we feel about her potential going forward moment? And for me, it's kind of where she's always been. Like she's, never really been free, but it's really not that bad. Like, yeah, you
Hmm.
got to report in, but it's kind of like work for us. Yeah, I can do whatever I want, but I'm still slave to death and taxes.
Obligated to death and taxes. Um,
I think the biggest problem for her is that she has to go there and she's now working for the person that she may hate the
I get this.
most,
mhm.
like the person that kept that caused her parents to die and made her life very
Yeah,
miserable and
yeah, and the whole
all.
moral compass bit,
Mhm.
how she doesn't agree with it. And I guess even in the Assassin's Guild, she got to choose her arcs or her quests she accepted. Words. Yeah, those things.
Jobs, tasks, gigs.
and and she also had like this person that I'm working for. It's also the person that saved
Yeah.
me and helped me all my life, and
Mhm.
now is the person that sent her to Endovier, to be a
Yeah,
slave and everything. So
yeah, yeah. All right. Book one. Ba. Who was your MVP? Most valuable person.
I think it would be, I don't know how to pronounce her name, the princess
I think it's Nehemia.
Nehemia. I have no idea.
Don't ask me.
I think she, she is such an important person because she actually knows how to speak their language, but she's hiding, and now she knows a lot of secrets. She has magic. She's the first person to show Selena that magic is still there. She saves Selena throughout the whole book.
Yeah. Yeah, we learn about that towards the end. She comes in and doesn't seem as important as we find out she is towards the end, right?
And I also think she brings a lot of the a different aspect besides romance and all and the the romance triangle there. So
Yeah. Yeah, another strong female character, and that was going to be my pick as well. As far as MVP, the captain of the guard is also pretty crucial. Um, but yeah, we finally get to see a bit more of the princess's character towards the end and kind of get a little bit of a hint of how powerful she is with the magic, right? With the duel between Kane and oh man, brain fart, Sardathian at the end there when she's kind of helping fight with magic, um, and warding off all the demons and whatnot, and the word marks, also helping with the rebels, which we got to see them in the mines, and then get sent to the mines as well. She's kind of um, real close to the center of power while still trying to defy it every way she can, through the rebels, through magic, through it all. Um, who was the MVP in book one
Well,
for
I
you,
would have
Pete?
to say the same character, the princess, separate yet
Oh
similar
man,
reasons. In the prequel, we get Sam, who is a strong rock foundation for the relationship, a good, moral compass aid for our main character, and he dies. So he's gone. And now he's just more turmoil. And then we get the um desert arc wolf sword armor chick, and she
we need to get you a
becomes a
cheat sheet, dude.
friend, and we get a little bit of that, and it's an opposite personality, and yet it seems like a good, okay, I can confide in them. We have very similar backgrounds. We're, in a similar spot. And then she betrays everything we thought we knew and loved. So now Sardathian is can't trust anybody of nobody because her guild betrayed her. Her love interest, who has been there from the get go, is dead. Anyone who she's ever let close has now betrayed her, and now we've got the princess who I I guess I'm seeing more and more throughout this book that the assassin is not about physically assassinating people. It's about the subterfuge, it's about the misdirection, it's about the information and knowledge is power, and how she informs them that she's not very good at their native language and kind of that whole thing. So it's backwards from all the other characters. We get the misdirection and trust up at the beginning, of which leads Sardathian to believe that she may be the one who's killing off the other people and who's doing all the word marks and blah 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 blah. But in fact, she's really had her back the whole time, and due to, getting closer after the misdirection, she comes through and she's been protecting our main character the whole time, and she's been counteracting Kane and the demons that he's been bringing through that could have been running amok. So she's a very strong character that is, yeah, yeah. I But if I had to select another, yeah, I guess that's a lie. I was trying to think of another one that I really liked, and the princess was by far my favorite. She has a lot of insight, and I can't wait to see more of her. She, as much as
Yes.
she knows, of course, she doesn't know what our main character has on her forehead. So you're no help. Get better. Um, yeah. So
You got away with words, dude.
she was her whole like thing was backwards because everyone else was nice up front and then turned out not to be good, where she was like, oh, I misdirect you up front, and then she ends up helping her out and being the linchpin for the whole freaking scenario. But yeah, I so
Yeah. Now
yeah,
now they're
yeah, she's
besties.
definitely going to be around more. Sure.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, final thoughts on the Throne of Glass thus far. Ba, what do you think? You going to continue the series?
I am. I already picked my June readings, and the second book is there. I'm gonna reread the second book because I already read that one, but I'm planning on keep reading the series. I really like it. I like romance, so that wasn't a problem for me. I want to see more of romance, but maybe with a different character or different characters that we haven't seen in it yet.
Hmm.
Um, because I'm not a big fan of the prince, at least not so far. Um, I like I mentioned already on the previous videos, I don't really like books written in the third person because it's very important. For me, it gives me the impression to be very impersonal. But I understand why in this book because the story is more important than the just seeing just seeing what is happening to Selena. So since it's in third person, we get to see a lot of what is happening between the king and the duke, or the duke and that lady that has the headaches, or the prince and his mother. So we got to see a lot more than just what is happening to her. But
Hmm.
it still bugs me a little bit because I feel that a lot of the emotions are left aside because of that.
Yeah.
But I really like it, and I'm especially now that Pick Me Puff said that my wishes are going to be granted, so I'm going to keep reading the series.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Pete? Final thoughts?
It is a young
It's
adult.
okay.
I need some combat. Like, I need some action. And I enjoyed it for the philosophizing, for the strong female character role. I enjoyed it because she does go through a lot of turmoil, and you get to see her kind of just like smush it down and lock it in a vault and be in the now. I guess as we've talked, they're definitely it, law of equivalent exchange. Energy cannot be destroyed; it can only be transferred. So it's going to come out somewhere. And as much as like that's a big part of this book, I don't really care. So I want to see more combat. So I enjoyed the book. I would
Um,
highly recommend it to younger females because it does show her in difficult situations and coming to terms with it in a lot of ways. I am disappointed at the magic so far because prequel was all, oh, it's gone. And one was all, it's there, but where is it? How do we use it? Nobody knows anything about it. Just kidding, we've been using it all along. Uh, yeah, more combat, more magic. It's a fun ride.
We still have
Yes.
six or seven books to
I guess that's
go.
true.
Wait.
There, if it's made it that far in a series, it's yeah. There's a lot of more developmental qualities that could come from it.
Glad I understand what the hype is about, and I see it. Um, Probably not a book I would have picked up on my own, but for what it is, I enjoyed it. I think a lot of the things that we've all kind of touched on and are looking for, um, just the way it's all been set up, is more to come in the upcoming books. I'm really interested in the world, understanding more there. They've kind of hinted at some of the um, like the fairies, the fae, the magic, the world, all those different aspects.
Or
Um,
fairies. What? Oh,
yeah,
okay, yeah.
like
Sorry,
in
the wolf
the
chick.
first
Yeah, yeah.
forest. No, in the forest when they come back. In the first couple
Yeah, I guess
chapters,
that
like it
was
used
in
to be.
one, and then in prequel, talking to Wolfhead chick in the desert, just talking about how, um, oh, metal witches tearing people apart.
Yes, yes, with their metal teeth and whatnot. Pygmy Puff says the magic system does get explained more later, and the world building gets bigger and better. So, with that in mind, I'm going to continue the series. Worth picking up, and yeah,
So
yeah.
that concludes this. Um, a little spoilers of our own. June to be read is locked and loaded, except for it's not shot. All that correlates. Um, we have a foundation of what we will be doing. Children of Ruin is the second book of the Children of Time. I guess kind of brief what is in it. Children of Time is a futuristic world where humanity has essentially destroyed itself, shot out a bunch of probes and of human colonization targets, tried to colonize different worlds, is very sci-fi, futuristic, and yeah, things get weird. That's essentially what's in the first book. I haven't personally read the second book yet. I enjoyed the first one. That is Children of Ruin, the seventh, and then please, for all that is left good in this world, pick up The Land on audiobook. I'm sure reading it does it justice, but if you need an audiobook that will beat every other audiobook, The Land is phenomenal. The narrators are amazing, the sound effects are the best I've ever seen, and if you want to see me get amped up about combat, oh my bejesus, there is combat. Not so much all in the first one, but it is just executed beautifully. That will be the 14th. And then a tried and true speaks to my soul, got me big into reading Mistborn, book one, which is really called The Final Empire. I'm sorry, Brandon. You should have just named it Mistborn. Just like in this one, how the first book of the Throne of Glass series is The Throne of Glass. Everybody just calls it Mistborn. You were really messing with your fonts there. Mistborn Book 1, aka, but really though, The Final Empire is the 21st. And then we are finishing it out on the 28th, A Mark of Kings. It is by a author that already does a book we enjoy. I don't have any insight into it other than those memes are fire. So if you follow Luke
Luke
Chimilenko, if you follow
Chmilenko.
his Facebook page, memes for days. Um, really enjoy the author. Yeah, but it is co-authored or co-written, so I don't know jack about it other than hopefully it's a lit RPG and combat, please combat, let there be combat. Yeah,
Pete, did you want combat?
I need this in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. Once again, thanks Ba for hopping on this stream and chatting with us. Hope to have you on again here soon. And yeah, stay safe everybody.
I
Bye.
Bye.